They came from all kinds of backgrounds and fields, but they were united by one common desire, and that was to try to prevent fetal alcohol syndrome and to help children and families who are living with its consequences. The other night I saw some of those same people again at a reception celebrating the 10th anniversary of NOFAS, the National Organization for Fetal Alcohol Syndrome. Born in that suburban basement 10 years ago, NOFAS is now the world's leading clearinghouse for information on fetal alcohol syndrome and fetal alcohol effect. I'm proud to say that my wife and I both serve on its board of directors. At the reception the other night, I was asked to say a few words about why I support NOFAS. I could have cited its pivotal role in the significant advances in our understanding of fetal alcohol syndrome and fetal alcohol effect. 10 years ago, we knew very little about fetal alcohol syndrome or fetal alcohol effect and its only slightly milder version. But today we know that as many as 40,000 children are born each year in this country with FAS and other alcohol-related conditions, costing Americans more than $3 billion a year in health care expenses. We know that fetal alcohol syndrome is the leading known cause of mental retardation among children. We know that FAS and FAE are both 100% preventable when pregnant women abstain from alcohol, and we know now there is no safe level of alcohol use during pregnancy. That's progress. And it's possible we still would not know these things today were it not for 10 years of diligent and dedicated work by the National Organization for Fetal Alcohol Syndrome. Instead, I talked about two other reasons that I support NOFAS. Those reasons are Carly Schreider and Lucy Clean. If you ever drop by the NOFAS office in Washington on a Friday afternoon, there's a good chance you will run into Carly. She volunteers at NOFAS every Friday, stuffing information packets. It's one of her many volunteer jobs. 28 years ago, when Carly's mother, Kathy, was pregnant with Carly, it was not uncommon for expectant mothers to be told to drink a beer a day for a fat, healthy baby. Women who were in danger of miscarrying were sometimes hospitalized and given alcohol intravenously for 5 or 6 hours in the mistaken belief that it would prevent a miscarriage. Back then, it never crossed Kathy's mind that her occasional glasses of wine might be harming her unborn child. Besides, just a year before, Kathy had another baby who was perfectly healthy, and she had drunk during that pregnancy. The first time Carly was misdiagnosed, she was an infant. A doctor attributed her developmental delays to chronic ear infections. When she was 4 years old, a psychologist offered another explanation for Carly's difficulties. He said she was being willfully disobedient. When Carly was 8, a team of specialists misdiagnosed her again with cerebral palsy. 8 years later, when Carly was 16, Kathy was training to be a substance abuse counselor. As part of her training, she attended a conference on crack babies. Sitting in the audience, she was stunned. Every characteristic of crack babies the lecturer described, Carly had, but Kathy had never used crack. She tracked down the few studies that had been done at that time on the effects of alcohol on fetuses. Again, she saw the same list of symptoms. Years later, researchers would announce that most of the symptoms they originally thought were the result of fetal exposure to crack were actually the result of fetal alcohol exposure, and that alcohol is much more devastating to fetuses than crack or any other drug. That was 11 years ago, before NOFAS was born. Learning the real cause of Carly's special challenges hasn't erased those challenges. FAS and FAE are lifelong conditions, but knowing the truth has enabled Kathy and others in Carly's life to focus less on Carly's defects and deficits and a lot more on her strengths. One of those strengths is Carly's extraordinary kindness and empathy. In addition to her volunteer work at NOFAS, Carly also volunteers to help people with cerebral palsy and the elderly. 2 years ago, she was named one of America's 1,000 Points of Life by former President Bush. She's an inspiration to everyone who meets her, and one of the reasons I believe so deeply in the work NOFAS does. Another reason I believe in NOFAS is because of a pint-sized little girl named Lucy Clean. Lucy is 4 years old. She spent the first 2 years of her life in an orphanage in Russia. When she was 2, she was adopted by Stephen and Lydia Clean of Herndon, Virginia. The Cleans also adopted a son from Russia, Paul, who is 3 years old and has no apparent fetal alcohol effect. But within a month after bringing Lucy and Paul home, Stephen and Lydia began to suspect that Lucy had special challenges. Over the next 16 months, Lucy was evaluated 8 times by pediatricians and other specialists. Not one of them recognized the symptoms of Lucy's fetal alcohol effect. Finally, scouring the internet, Stephen stumbled on the truth. He and Lydia took their research to Lucy's pediatrician, who read it and confirmed their hunch. Today, Lucy is a talented little gymnast who attends special education preschool, and while it's still too early to know for sure, her doctor and parents think there's a good chance she will be able to live an independent and productive life when she grows up. Together, Carly and Lucy illustrate some of the progress that has been made in the 10 years since NOFAS was born. We still have a long way to go. Today, children with FAS and FAE are being diagnosed earlier. That means they are getting help earlier, which means they have a better chance at full and productive lives. It took Carly's family 16 years to get a correct diagnosis. It took Lucy's family 16 months. That's progress. 11 years ago, when Carly was diagnosed, there was very little research on the effects of alcohol on fetuses. 10 years later, Lucy's father was able to find an enormous amount of information on the internet. Slowly but surely, the studies are being done, and the information is reaching the people who need it. That's progress. When Carly was diagnosed, there were few, if any, people that Kathy could turn to for support and advice. Today, Stephen and Lydia attend a NOFAS support group for parents of children with FAS and FAE, and they know they are not alone. That, too, is progress. At the reception the other night, we celebrated an incredible milestone, the 10th anniversary of NOFAS, but next Thursday, June 15th, will mark another milestone. At the urging of Stephen and Lydia in Fairfax, Virginia, the school district will hold its first ever meeting to help preschool teachers recognize FAS and FAE and help children and families living with this challenge each and every day. And NOFAS will conduct the training. Now that is real progress. I hope that everyone today will recognize how fortunate we are, those of us lucky enough to be born healthy, those of us lucky enough to be born without fetal alcohol syndrome or fetal alcohol effect. I hope everyone will congratulate those who have worked so diligently over the course of the last 10 years to make NOFAS what it is today, and to recognize NOFAS for the difference that they are making in the lives of Carly and Lucy and hundreds of thousands of others who live with the challenges of FAS and FAE, and for the millions of babies who have been born healthy these last 10 years because of NOFAS. May their next 10 years be even more remarkable. I yield the floor.